So I think, we were talking offline that Moira was talking about the good things, but also some of the other things that accomplish and accompany this. Let's talk about the good things first, and then we'll dive into some of the more difficult parts. Tell me about the good things. There are supports for people.
There are supports for people, and again, the support in Massachusetts is exceptional. There's an organization called the Mass Trans Political Coalition. They're the one that we're doing the fundraising drag bingo for on the 31st, and they, oh my goodness, they support the entire transgender community through, everything from, they've employed Ropes and Gray to help with the name change process pro bono for families, which can be a really daunting process. They have educational areas that come out and will come to your organizations and educate on transgender inclusion. They're actually right now launching a pilot program called the Trans Leadership Academy that helps transgender people, especially BIPOC transgender individuals, with job training. They get them a T-Pass, they get them a laptop, they do mentorship, job training, help them find jobs, help reduce homelessness, recidivism. They do an incredible job of that support. So they're a really bright light, and they're I think the only state-run organization that's really on a national level as big and as prominent as they are, and it's for good reason. They really get the job done, work very, very hard. And then there's smaller support groups like ours, but then you also have PFLAG. I know the Duxbury PFLAG has a group for transgender folks as well. Hingham Pride Project. So there are a lot of groups out there to support, but I do have to say right now, it's overwhelming what's going on in the United States in terms of some really dangerous and frightening legislation that is going on. And as you mentioned, these bright lights in the non-binary community, these transgender leaders, are absolutely exhausted. And, one of the reasons that we were really motivated to come on the show and talk to you, and again, we so appreciate that opportunity, is because transgender leaders are asking for allies to step up. And they make a very good point that being an ally and doing nothing means nothing. That you need to be informed, you need to step up, and you need to be an active advocate. And part of that is understanding what is going on in the United States right now, which I think, I'd love to have, Finn and Max to talk about it, in particular from their standpoint. We can support as much as we can try to support, but at the end of the day, we need a wider base of support to address the hate mongering and again the very, very dangerous language and legislation that's being proposed right now. So I didn't know if you wanted to maybe touch base on a few of those things that are going on right now that are particularly egregious, just to make people aware of it. They may not be.
Yeah, I mean, in general terms that we were speaking about, 7 states have already fully banned gender-affirming care for people under the age of 18. 21 states have introduced some sort of legislation to do that. And I know a lot of people, I've heard interviews, a lot of people have questions. They ask, why can't you wait? And I think that people need to know that there are a lot of young people that just won't be able to make it that long. It's easy to say, why can't you wait? But even before I got to the age of 18, which was when I really came to understand why I was going through what I was going through, I don't know that I would have been able to make it that long myself without the support that I had from family and from some really fantastic providers, because it can be unbelievably painful and confusing to see yourself in a body that you can't imagine going into adulthood with. So as much as it's great to talk about protecting children and keeping people safe and doing all these things with a lot of information, which I would say from my experience and from the experience of a lot of the young people we work with in the support group, that their doctors are incredibly well informed. Their providers are incredibly well informed. They aren't doing this overnight. There are long periods of discussion. There are long periods of learning. There are other sorts of bills that have been passed. 18 states have banned transgender students from participating on school sports teams. And I think for myself, I played high school hockey, middle school hockey. Hockey was my whole life growing up. And that was the one thing for me that made me happy to be in my body. It was the one thing that really made the experience of struggling to exist within my body, that I felt that it was doing something positive for me, that I could feel strong, I could be happy with what my physical capabilities were. So I think that excluding young trans people from sports does a lot more harm than even people might understand. That I think for a lot of people can be one way that they can connect with their bodies in a positive way, which can be really few and far between for people.
Yeah.
And it's the entry point that opens up the whole, it's such a bad faith wedge to try to get people to doubt the validity of trans people in general, because, well, it's an unfair event. All of sports, Hassan Piker put this perfectly, all of sports is based on unfair physical advantages. Have you seen Michael Phelps? The man's half fish. Think of how many people who are over 7 feet. Like, what's the statistics? Like 90% of them are in the NBA? Give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, hormones change your body. Any advantage that you have when you start taking hormones, you're probably gonna lose most of it. And the other thing that I've been thinking about with banning trans people from sports is that I feel I've seen a lot of takes from TERFs and radical feminists being like, oh, well, these men are trying to hurt our girls, and that's a take that I see a lot that is incredibly transphobic and incorrect. But the thing that it leaves out that completely negates that take is that trans men are getting banned from sports too. So if your whole idea is, oh, well, these assigned male at birth people have an advantage over assigned female at birth people, what about the assigned female at birth people who are men? Who are playing in male sports? Are you saying
isn't that hard mode?
It completely like negates their take.
That's legendary. All skulls on.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing we wanted to mention, and I think is really important in this conversation, because as you said, a lot of people have these little wedge issues that open the discussion for them, and a lot of time it's about children. It's about protecting children. And recently we've seen a few bills, they've been introduced in Oklahoma and Texas, that would basically make gender affirming care inaccessible to people of all ages. Adults, minors, everybody. And I think it's really important to raise awareness about things like that. But one of them has already passed through the state house, been voted on, passed through the house, because it's not about children. It's not about children. It's never been about children. It's an easy way for people to disguise the issue, but genuinely, once you've moved through children, they're attacking adults. They're attacking trans people's ability to exist in any space, of any age, at any point.
I don't want my child bride exposed to this.
Right, but just using the word protecting implies that there's a danger. Words are so powerful. You know, we have to protect our children from what? From people affirming their identity, from people saying, this is who I am, without that judgment. There's, words are very powerful in that way. Patricia, your, transparent brilliance, what do you think the danger is right now? Why are we so divided about this particular topic?
Well,
I ask myself that every day. Where does this hate come from? When I'm reading the paper and watching the news and I'm listening to interviews, I just can't for the life of me understand where this hate comes from. But I think something Finn touched on is that it's just it's just an excuse for a larger issue, and it's not just transgender people who are under attack. It's all our vulnerable communities right now are under attack. And I think it's an attempt to distract from what the real and what the important issues are. Where is our country going? Where's our world going in terms of climate change? Where are we going in terms of our democracy? Where are we going in terms of gun violence? And then if you break it down to an even just more in your house level, in states like Texas, if you can distract, and I'm from Texas, born, raised, and college educated, so and plenty of family still there, so I feel I can speak to this. If you distract with the hate, then they're not so focused on the fact that why isn't our grid working and we don't have heat this winter, or why isn't our grid working and we don't have air conditioning this summer? How come our poverty rates are going up? How come we can't get health care for everybody? So instead of tackling those big issues, it's much easier to stir the pot with hate for all of these vulnerable groups. So our BIPOC communities, women in this country, I mean, it's the same thing, they're just all our rights are being taken away little bit by little bit. Like Finn said, you start with something small and then it's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It's not going to end. And I just can't understand where the cruelty comes from, because that is what it is. And I don't know if you're familiar with Heather Cox Richardson. She's a historian, a great renown. And she wrote an article recently about the Conservative Political Action Committee meeting that they just had, I guess, last week, where their host said,
Michael Knowles.
Yes.
Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level. For the good of society, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. What is that? What is that?
It's the sort of
let's debate this. Let's have a debate.
It's genocide.
Let's have a debate. Let's debate this in good faith.
Yeah, no, never going to happen. They won't. And it's when you start to make people unequals, because in our country, we're all built, our founding principles are equality. When you start to take that away and some people aren't equal to others, then you lose everything. You just are hoping you're not the next one who's not in the unequal block, because when they're done with us, they're coming for whoever's next. I guarantee you, it doesn't ever end.
What's the poem? First they came for the people that I don't like, and then everything was fine.
Absolutely. Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Can I add one thing that's really particularly frightening? Is
sure,
that
please?
Sorry. I just want to make sure that we get this one in, because this one to me is honestly, I think one of the most egregious. Again, the banning access to healthcare, transgender, gender affirming healthcare saves lives, right? Talking about protecting people from having their lives saved. It completely makes no sense. I think probably one of the most frightening ones, though, is in Florida right now, where they have a bill proposed that would not only make it illegal in affirming trans children in a family as child abuse, and giving the grounds as a child abuser, as a parent, if you support your child in that journey, to take the child out of your care and put them in the custody of the state. So here you are, first of all, you have lawmakers or these legislators who don't understand what transgenderism is all about. And, they're completely going against the physicians, therapists, everyone that's out there. And this is not only limited to, families that have a trans child. The bill actually also applies to any child that is considered at risk of transitioning. And so the law claims that just even having another trans child, a sibling or a parent in the house that's trans, would put that child at risk, and they could be taken away. So here you are doing, they're saying they're protecting these children, is taking a child out of a supportive environment that is giving them, the healthcare that they need, the love that they need, the support, the home,
the mental care that they need, the emotional care,
and putting them in the custody of the state, even if they're not transgender, even if they're at this risk of being transgender, because God knows that transgenderism, wow, they're acting like that it's contagious or something. It's crazy. That's frightening to me. And just the idea that there could be that intervention to take your child away from the very, very place.
I mean, just to bring that back home, Moira, if Thomas, you were talking about our happy families. Our children transitioned before they were 18 or thereabouts. If we were in these states, they not only would they be attempting to take our children from us, we could be facing jail time. Our children, I can't even begin to imagine the horrors our children would face. And we're just so lucky to be in Massachusetts. But I find that being here comes with a responsibility. We can't just sit back and say, well, thank God we're not there.
Right.
We have to do our part.
And we will. And that's part of why we're talking here tonight. And I'm fortunate that our sponsors also do their parts. And so with that in mind, we are going to take a commercial break so our sponsors can tell us how they are going to help. I will be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Stretch the canvas, rush with madness, is it sadness or just a show?